Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. Alright folks, today we're going to take a look at SPY and QQQ to sort of see where the market could be heading and where we could see some bounce zones or if it's going to bounce right now. So today we had a pretty big sell-off, as I'm sure you're aware, down on SPY 1.67%, big volume coming in today. Rivaling sort of what we saw back in this time frame. I don't know if you recall, February and March were pretty challenging months as well, as you see spending a bunch of time at the bottom of this channel before recovering on SPY in April, and then spending most of from April through now in mid-September at the very top of this channel. So it is generally still holding this channel, and this placed a candlestick right about in the center today, and it's not going to look so dissimilar from QQQ, but we'll look at some specific ranges on each of them in order to try to get bearings a little bit. But what I would be looking for are a couple of things. One would be if it does show a really quick recovery and just come up in the next, days or weeks and kind of fill this gap pretty quickly. This hammer, or this candlestick, as well as the one on QQQ, but especially more so the one on SPY, is looking fairly hammerish. Now it's red. I prefer a hammer candle to be green, but they can certainly come in the form of a red candlestick. That's certainly possible. And I would like to see a little bit more of the body stretching up toward the top, but overall, I mean, pretty interesting how it took shape today. And we'll take a look at the daily in just a second. But the first thing on the bullish side that I would look for is the potential for that to gap fill. Now, the other thing where we saw it catch its support here, this is another kind of interesting area because you see we stretch it back here. This is also where it fought through a little bit of support and resistance previously. So you see it was coming up here and it hit the top of the channel and then it came back down, and where it caught it was right about where it caught itself today. Very close. And then it made another run up at the top of the channel, and then it bounced down and it caught itself in this zone. So I would put this as a potential purple bounce zone, and I'm just going to leave it stretched back there to sort of remind us why it's there. And then the other one that I look for to the downside is right about here, because there's a lot of previous support and resistance in this area. Let's stretch this out a bit in this direction. So the purple boxes are a couple of potential bounce zones that I would look for, as well as the white area being a potential gap fill to the upside. So I know that these look pretty close in together, but this would take SPY from 424 on the low end down to 419 on the high end. So the bottom of this starts to feel like we're really pushing that 400 level. Now I'll put in one additional line here. This area here, that sort of stretches down to this area here right at 400, where we had that gap up, and then it retested that area on these candlesticks. So that would be an additional zone to look at if we need it to the downside. I don't know if we will, but I'll leave them there for now as placeholders in case something happens and it's worth taking a look at that area. Now, if it is able to bounce, and certainly if it's able to come up and fill this gap, I would just look for it to continue relatively concretely within this channel until it breaks this channel. It has been in here since about November of 2020, late November, and then really worked its way in December. So it's spent all of this year in that channel, and certainly has held up really well. But as you see, there's been a big uptick in volume, and the predominant volume being selling volume here in the last several days. So we'll see what happens. And the MACD also looking like it wants to pull it down a little bit further. If we take a look at the RSI, we are getting pretty close into oversold territory, so that could, also bring in some buyers around this range. But like we said, buyers have stepped in this area, in this purple box, several times before. And the most notably, I think, would be this one, because that was the one that was looking pretty dippish, especially with this big gap down, and then it filled that gap the next day. So if we look at that as a potential analog for what we could see tomorrow or in coming days this week, maybe we will see a relatively quick refilling of the gap. I don't know. Patterns don't have to repeat themselves, but patterns are worth noting in my opinion. Now let's take a look at QQQ, and then we'll zoom in to each of these and go ahead and look at what happened on the 1 day, 1 minute chart today. So obviously smaller gap, but gap here to fill if it wants to come back up. Similar time frame, that we were just looking at, had this gap here that was filled very quickly the next day and gave it another run. If it were to repeat that, it would probably run up toward, by the time it hit the top of this, who knows, 383 to 386, something like that. I mean, it just depends how quickly it would move up there, if it would go at all, of course. To the downside, you have this zone that it caught previously, which is right about where it came to today. So I'd look for the possibility of a purple bounce there. And then if it can't hold that, I'll look for another possible area here to see if it could catch support there. Now, if it can't, and we're looking at something quite a bit further down, I'll throw in a couple of horizontal lines here also, just in case they are needed. This one is of interest to me. And, oops. If you can't hear, there's an immense amount of screaming in the background. For anyone else who is at home these days with small children, it's quite an experience. So these this is like the tight band to the downside that I'll look at if it needs it, but it would have quite far to go in order to bring that into play, as you can tell. Something like 10% away or something. That's very off the top of my head math, but certainly double check that. But, again, if it can't, or if it doesn't come down to get into these regions, I would, again, just look for it to carry on in this channel. It's been in this channel. There's been a few bops out, but certainly this is capturing more than 90% of the price action since June of 2020. It's been in this channel. So, like I said, some additional slight bops out to the top than we've seen in SPY, but that's a very long time to be holding this channel. That said, maybe this is signaling the end of this channel and it's going to break. Who knows? But just something to potentially keep in mind and look at as we work our way through. Now, if we look at the 1 day today, and you can see where these are playing factors. I mean, the big point here is, near miss off of that purple box that we just put in, but just couldn't hold the VWAP early this morning. So that's what I'll be looking for early tomorrow morning to see if it's going to be able to try and hold the VWAP at all. And it just pushed right off of it. But that bounce was really, really intense and ran up very, very quickly. So really solid bounce zone there. And on the QQQ, looking incredibly similar. It doesn't look to me like that bounce was nearly as steep or as strong. So maybe something to look at there. Maybe there's some more challenge ahead, specifically for the Nasdaq. I didn't actually check on this after we closed. Yeah, so Nasdaq certainly got the brunt of this versus the S&P today. But that's what I'm looking at in the meantime. One last check that I would do on the indicator side of things. Let me get rid of the RSI and let me throw in the MAs here and just sort of see where we're sitting. I know that this makes it quite cluttered, but as you see here, we lost support of the 20 MA, which has previously caught it at certain points, but the 50 has been doing a lot of the heavy lifting as well, and then the channel. So 50 did a good job catching previously, but it gapped right through the 50. So now 50 as resistance is something that we haven't seen since back here in March, or no, sorry, May. I'm like, what month is the 5th month? And at that point, we had to get caught by the bottom of the channel and work ourselves back over the 50. So you see it turned the 50 into resistance here, and then had to double bounce off the bottom of that channel, maybe triple bounce, in order to get its bearings and head back up. So if it came down to the bottom of this channel at this point, you're looking at something probably around 348 to 350, again, depending on how quickly it comes down. You know, it's the longer it takes to come down and hit the bottom of the channel, the higher the price is going to be. And that's, of course, then if it even holds the channel. Looking very similar, though much further away on SPY to reach up and tap its head on that 50 MA. That's sitting quite far above. Last time it lost support of the 50 was way back here. This would have been in October, unless I missed something along the way there. I mean, very briefly here, but it didn't really dip below. But it was really trying to get its bearings at this point, and wasn't even in this channel yet. So since it's been in this channel, I mean, if you want to say here, it briefly lost to 50, but it caught the bottom of the channel support. So essentially the same type of pattern or play that we saw on the QQQ side of things. So, you know, the shape of the candlestick gives me a little bit of bullish hope, but the size of the sell volume and the sort of spectacular dive here that the MACD is taking, and significantly increasing distance between itself and the signal line, certainly looks like it wants to nosedive further. But you never know how quickly these things can flatten out and turn around. But we'll see in the coming days ahead. Not a ton happening after hours right now, which is fine. Don't know if we'll ever see again what we saw a year or so ago when we had those limit ups and limit downs every night in futures. It was amazing, but not necessarily amazing in a good way. I mean, it was crazy time. All right, folks. Well, I hope that you started off the trading week well. I know it was a dicey one. I have a couple of videos talking about what to trade when the market is crashing. It doesn't have to literally be when it's crashing, but certainly if you're unclear of how to trade or what to trade on red days, I would take a look at that. What to trade when the market is crashing. It's on my channel. And you can also look at growth stocks selling off, and I talk there about some tickers that go up when growth sector as a whole is struggling or going down. All right, well, I certainly wish you the best in the week ahead, and I appreciate you watching. I will see you in the next video.